I will officially begin right now.
Yes.
Hey, Warren or Dan, did you guys see Supermarkets Inc. on CNBC last night?
No, I didn't.
I'm going to tell you, I'm sure they'll show it again. It is worth watching. And I don't know whether it reveals anything unethical, but it does show how calculating the supermarket industry is in getting you to buy. The reality is we are all research subjects and pawns being moved around without realizing it. Supermarket researchers are very good at driving up purchases without us knowing what they're doing. As an example, over the last 4 years, shopping carts became bigger. And they didn't bring in some big ones and keep some small ones. They got rid of, in a sweep, all the smaller ones were gone. They put in bigger ones. Nobody noticed. Why? Because people think they're spending a lot of money when their cart looks full. So they concluded, hey, if we give them a bigger cart, they won't realize how much you're spending.
That's good marketing.
It is good marketing. It's powerful marketing, and unfortunately, it sometimes works against us. We like to believe that all of these entities are out there to help us get good food and make the right choices, but that's not really always the case. And it's not only the large-scale supermarkets, but also the convenience stores. They sell foods, and they rely upon stimulating impulse purchases. So Walgreens, as an example, discovered the primary limitation that determines how much merchandise people buy is what they can carry. So they put baskets at the end of every aisle. So you go in thinking you want to buy milk, and you wind up buying chips and cold medicine and a toothbrush and shampoo and Visine and power bars because it fits in your basket. And then there are the loyalty cards. The supermarkets have the loyalty cards, and you get special pricing. We happily use those cards. We stick them on our keychains because we hope we're going to save some money.
Right. Everyone's using them.
Yeah. These cards tell the supermarket what you buy. And the researchers also know, because you're carrying that on your keychain, they know when you're in the store.
Wow.
And in some cases, they can even tell how much time you spend in each aisle. So they made market research really simple. They don't have to interview people anymore. Now, the supermarket chains have a common goal, and it's a very myopic one. Their goal is to get you to buy as much as possible. So that begins by putting the staples that everybody needs, like butter and eggs and milk, in the far corner of the store. And impulse purchases like candy and soft drinks and magazines, they are at the checkout line. They put the products that they most want you to buy at eye level. And they also know if they can make food appear healthy. I'm not saying if they can make food healthy. Don't misunderstand me here. I'm saying if they can make food appear healthy, especially if they can put these supposedly healthy foods at child level and make them look compelling to the parent and the child in the cart, then the parent is going to give in to the child's urging. Can't we get this cereal? So they learned quite a bit by observing us, consumers, and in doing just that, they learned that if they can put the word organic on the label, food manufacturers' offerings will become better sellers, regardless of whether or not the food is actually supportive of human metabolism. And Dr. Papa, you're going to talk about that tonight, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not only the supermarkets themselves that have interest in this. The information flows up and down the chain to food labelers, food packagers, food manufacturers, and these suppliers to the retail market are very excited by the information they acquire. As an example, thanks to monitoring loyalty card activity, food manufacturers know that it's a given that parents with children present will spend the most of their time in two non-refrigerated aisles, fruit juices and breakfast cereals. So that's where they want to put their most compelling eye candy under the guise of it being healthy. So you look at the fruit juices, they all say packed with vitamin C or natural. They're trying to say healthy. And breakfast cereals, they find ways to put words like whole grains, on their boxes. So I got to say, and tell me if you agree with this, Dr. Papa, I feel like we've almost given up free will when it comes to buying groceries.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and, people don't understand the game, but you know what? It's a game to make money, and it's a big game.
But we also have to protect ourselves from being victimized, by that game. So let's consider a very simple question. Why do we want to eat healthy foods? We do. Why? Well, the obvious answers include we want to live better, we want to live longer, we want to be free of disease, and we value the health and the well-being of our families probably more than we value anything else in the world. So in that, we want to eat healthy. The desire to eat healthy is a good start. But does everyone do it? No, and you have to wonder why. I believe the most telling factor as to whether or not people will make healthy choices is, do you understand what has to be done? Do you understand what choices have to be made? And are you willing to do it? And when it comes to being healthy and fit, do you know a single person anywhere on the planet who would argue with the fact that we need to eat right and exercise? And everyone has tried it at some point, but judging by our population, it's pretty clear that people haven't mastered this yet. And I think the challenge isn't willingness, it's understanding. It isn't a lack of motivation as much as it's a lack of information.
Right.
So let's turn the spotlight for a minute on good foods versus bad foods, because that's what people want. They want to have a good food list and a bad food list. They want someone to lay it out for them. Dr. Pompa, don't your patients ask you that? You know, is this good? Is this good? Is this good? And they want it to be either yes or no, because they don't want to have to think.
Yeah, no, that is the number one request. Don't you just have a list of foods that I can eat and a list of foods not to eat? That's
right,
always the request.
So here's what we know. They want to enjoy their meals, but they don't want to work too hard. Because food should be pleasurable. They don't want to have to think, right?
Right.
And I think the challenge is nothing falls cleanly into the category of good or bad, right? With the exception maybe of high fructose corn syrup and hydrogenated fats, which we'll talk about. But as an example, is alcohol good or bad? I can make an argument for both sides. You know, how about chocolate or coffee? So now let's talk about animal foods. Is meat good or bad? I wrote an article recently that my Grandpa Joe every morning had steak and eggs for breakfast, and I can't picture him with an ounce of fat on his body. He ate meat. And I remember when I was younger, adding muscle faster when I included red meat in my diet, and I never had an issue with cholesterol. But today, I minimize my intake of red meat. So that raises a question. Was meat different, or was I different, or both? And if either one is true, either the meat is different today than it was then, or our bodies are different, then isn't it feasible that something that might have once fallen closer to the good side of the list slides over to the bad side? If you want to gain understanding, what do? You go to an expert. And years ago, that was simple. The problem is today, it's hard to know not only who's an expert, but who's an expert willing to tell the truth, and who is a fake disguised as an expert, and who is an expert who's either misinformed or willing to compromise truth for money. If we go back 30 years or so, margarines were becoming popular. Why? Because despite the fact that entire generations were fit and healthy with butter and dairy products as staples in their diets, Americans started fattening up. And we started learning about cholesterol, and butter was indicted as a culprit. So food manufacturers go, oh, look, perceived problem, we'll come up with perceived solution. And margarine was the answer. It was made from oil, so it had to be better than butter. So health-minded people chose margarine. In 1993, Udo Erasmus came out with a book titled Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. And he started to not only demonstrate that essential oils and fats are complementary components of health, but he drew a stark contrast between those foods that are man-made and those found in nature. So even though it comes from oil, margarine is a man-made entity. It didn't exist in nature. So the word got out, hydrogenated fats are bad, trans fats are bad, and people started looking for new education. But they don't want to read research. They just want someone to tell them what to eat. So if you don't want to read research, but you just want good advice, you go to the most credible experts. The Mayo Clinic in 2003 put out a paper about the value of omega-3 fish oil. And it seemed very much in line with what Udo Erasmus has said a decade earlier. And they've since suggested that adding 2 3-ounce servings of fish to your diet in a week may decrease your risk of dying of heart attack by more than 40%. So what happened? Fish consumption skyrocketed in the U.S. We were paying attention to the fact that Eskimos seem to not get heart disease, and sushi restaurants are everywhere. We have 8 times the number of sushi restaurants today than we had in 1990. And I don't only mean a sushi restaurant on every corner, but now you get sushi at weddings and bar mitzvahs and corporate events. They have California rolls in college cafeterias. You can find it in nightclubs and high-end restaurants and beach cafes, and even in the little refrigerator that they now put in all the grocery stores. So that came in part because of taste and palatability and great sushi chefs. But then we heard about something else, mercury. As America's having a love affair with sushi, researchers started recognizing that people are getting sick, and they have elevated mercury levels, not only among adults, but in 1 in 5 newborns. So where's that coming from? So the point is, even if you try to follow the trends, and even if you try to pay attention, it's confusing, and things change. And is meat good or bad? Is fish good or bad? So, Dr. Papa, you work with a lot of health professionals. You do seminars, educating health professionals. Early on, were you surprised by how misled and deceived they were?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And it's for the very reason you said. There's so much contradicting information out there that it's even confusing the professionals.
So you and I had a few conversations lately, and one of them was there are so many different things that these health professionals need to know so that they can be experts, and share the right information because they have good intentions.
Right.
So we probably could come up with, I would guess, 150 mistakes that health professionals make, but we narrowed it down to 4, right?
Yeah, at least the 4 that I think have a huge impact, on people's health. I mean, that's how we really came up with these 4. And there are 4 that I've been talking about for years now and studying and researching for years.
Would you say this is a safe assumption? If we all moved to land that had never been touched by pesticides, and we raised chickens and cows and ate fresh eggs and churned butter from whole milk, and the cows ate real grass and grazed and wandered, and once in a while we enjoyed some fresh-caught cold water salmon, we'd be healthier. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. And, part of the confusion is just that, because you said something earlier that you said, well, we just eat what's natural, we eat what's, God-made, and stay away from what man has made. But see, it's gotten more complicated than that, because you would say, well, meat or dairy that we buy in the grocery store, God made that. That's not a man-made food like margarine. However, there's all these studies that show that it's bad. So the problem is because now we have a whole new category, Phil, a whole new category of foods, that are created by God, but that are ruined by man. And isn't that some of the issue with meat and dairy? It's not the meat that's bad. It's what man has done to the dairy or to the meat, etc. So this is the confusion. I mean, you said it. So it's confusing everybody, and it's making it hard for everybody.
So let's start by providing a little bit of clarity. Why don't you continue on that thought process and talk about the first mistake that you see health professionals making? That basically something they need to understand.
Yeah, there's the 4 big mistakes. I mean, right here. And again, I mean, these are 4 big mistakes that I think that everybody's making. However, I like to point out that, nutrition and fitness experts are making these mistakes too. I mean, I can't tell you how many people come and say, well, my doctor or my trainer put me on a low-fat diet. Look, we're going to talk about low-fat diets in a minute, but I can tell you right now that low-fat diets simply don't work, and there's no scientific research that actually backs that, that they actually work. Matter of fact, they don't work at all, and they don't work for disease, and they don't work for weight loss. Now, the other one, and Phil, you drew, attention to it, is that thinking all organic is healthy. We know that if you put organic on the label, we're absolutely going to sell more product. So therefore, organic, yes, might have less chemicals, but there are major, major health issues with even organic foods. And by the way, that's shocking, to the average person, the average consumer. And it's shocking to me that how few even doctors, realize that really, what organic actually even means. And of course, whey protein made the list. Why whey protein? It's because, so many people are recommending whey protein, but it is an absolute poison when you get the wrong whey protein. And so, I've talked about whey protein for a long time, and I felt that because we have a lot of fitness experts on the line, I thought it was a good one to add in. And then here's a big one that's, I think, made the news a lot. It's fructose and fructose-loaded drinks, such as juice. I can't tell you how many people think that juice is a healthy alternative. Every mom out there probably, but again, also nutrition and health experts as well. And the sport drinks, other vitamin and energy drinks, which are really popular now, loaded with fructose. We're going to teach you what the difference is of fructose and even glucose. And of course, most people now are hearing at least about high fructose corn syrups, but even fructose is bad. and people are loading up on these drinks, and they're poison. So let's look